Okay, it looks like we're live, Carl.
All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the joint meeting of the Trumbull Board of Finance and the Trumbull Town Council. We're convening this evening to discuss the American Rescue Plan allocation funding and to make hopefully final allocations under that federal grant. At this time, I'd like everybody to pause for a moment of silence, and then we'll do our Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the
United States of America and to the
republic for
which
which it
stands
stands, one nation,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible, with liberty
liberty
and justice
for
for
all.
all.
Just a note,
Go ahead.
just a note of housekeeping. If you're not speaking, could you please put yourself on mute? There are quite a few people on this call this evening. You have members of the Board of Finance and our alternates, members of the Town Council, as well as representatives from departments who have allocations of concern for the ARPA discussion. I would ask to remind everybody, since we haven't had a large meeting on Zoom, that if you do wish to speak or to ask a question, kindly use the raise your hand feature on the bottom of the screen, and to remain on mute until you're recognized by either Carl or myself to get started. Also, when you do begin speaking, even though your name is on the screen, please announce yourself each and every time you speak. That will make Attorney Shopik happy and not yell at me today. Also, the way that we'll kind of work through this as we go through departments, we will ask for questions. We'll ask for questions from the Board of Finance and then from the Town Council, and we'll try to move it along. Please be respectful if somebody asks a similar question, that we try to keep it all moving as far as that. Thank you, Carl.
All right, thank you. Can we have the clerks of the board and the council call the roll? Why don't we start with the Board of Finance, please?
Phyllis, you have to come off mute.
We don't hear Phyllis.
Nope,
Yeah,
there she is.
thank you.
Okay.
Here.
Thank you. Vincent DiGennaro,
Here.
Paul Timpanelli,
Here.
Rosemary Seaman,
Here.
Christine L. Harris,
Here.
Dave Gower,
Here.
Mark Mascola, Marty Isaac, Scott Seymour.
Here.
Mark Mascola is on the call. I saw him.
I'm here. Sorry.
That's okay.
No worries, I gotcha. And Marty?
Marty is not with us this evening.
Okay.
All right.
Who's voting for Marty?
We'll have Christine vote for Marty.
Thank you.
Okay, Margaret, can you call the roll for the Town Council, please?
Saw him. Mike Buswell.
Here.
Mary Isaac.
Here.
Michael Colahan. Bill Mecca.
Here.
Ann Sather.
Here.
Jennifer Winchell. Veronica Lenzen.
Here.
Richard Wolf.
Here.
Jason Marsh.
Here.
Anthony Dorsey.
Here.
Ashley Gaudiano.
Here.
Carl Massaro.
Here.
John Foreman.
Here.
Joe Pifko.
Here.
Scott Wick.
Here.
Joy Cologne. Steve Lemoyne.
Here.
Kelly Malazzi.
Here.
Tony Cinto.
Here.
Kevin Shively.
Here.
And Nicole Stanton.
Here.
Okay, council is present and in a quorum. We have on our agenda an opportunity for public comment. That comment should be limited to the American Rescue Plan. So I will ask anybody who wants to speak on this matter this evening to raise your hand. And when you're identified, give your name and address, please. So I'll ask Mr. Chin to tell me if we have any commentators.
Yes, we do. Ms. McKeel would like to speak.
All right, Mr. McHale, please give your name and address.
Yes, good evening. My name is Mark McKeel, 27 Edgewood Avenue, Trumbull, Connecticut. And good evening, Board of Finance and Town Council members. Thank you for the opportunity to address this evening's joint special session and the agenda regarding the appropriations of remaining fund balances for the American Rescue Plan Act. I'd like to address the line item on the town provided documents under the heading Remaining Balances on Hand from the original allocations. Specifically, the line item noted as generically Town Facilities Study. The original allocation was for $150,000 with no detail and no spending to date. A question I would have is, what are the details that make up a town facility study? There is a additional category further down the document titled Original Allocations, Balances to be Reallocated for New Requests. It's all a bit confusing to me, so I will certainly listen after I finish my very brief statement. And that line is also for $150,000 for town facilities study. Once again, the question should be asked by your committees: what are the details of what makes up the town facilities study request? The Trumbull taxpayers have already spent 7+ years and $332,000 as of August 24th this year on architectural expenses for a community center that has yet to have formally been approved for site selection. We would hope this $150,000 in ARPA funding earmarked as town facility studies monies is not approved, not reallocated, or used to pay for any additional architectural costs for a community center. We would recommend that allocating that amount of $150,000 rather than to the town facility studies should be allocated to the safety and urgent needs of our community, including the police department, emergency medical services funding, and the Veterans and First Responders Center. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McKeel. I'm sure over the course of the evening, your questions will get answered. Thank you. Mr. Chin, do we have anyone else?
There are no other members of the public who indicated they'd like to speak.
All right, then thank you. I will close public comment. We will then bring our primary business to the floor. Let's see, Ms. Sather, do you happen to have our resolution for this evening that you can move to the floor?
I might. Hang on. Sorry.
Councilman Massaro, I do have, or Chairman Massaro, I have it pulled up if you need somebody.
Okay, why don't you move it to the floor then, please?
Not a problem. Resolution 2C30-93, be it resolved that all remaining unallocated and reallocated American Recovery Plan Act, ARPA funds as recommended by the First Selectman and amended by the Board of Finance is hereby approved.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second. Veronica Lenzen, sorry.
Chairman McHugh, do you have to do anything like what we just did?
I don't have a resolution number to do that. So once the discussion's open, we'll have the discussion and then we'll just have a vote as to once the deliberation's done as to the total amounts to send on to you. Don't
All right.
believe, I don't believe we have a resolution. Attorney Shopik, do I need one?
No. No, we do by
I have
council.
to unmute myself. I think that Phyllis sent something out. There was an agenda, a separate agenda posted for the Board of Finance.
I just have it just says Pledge of Allegiance roll call. Oh, I'm sorry. I do. Mr. Timpanelli? Do you have that in front of you?
I do not.
It's just one line. Can I have a motion from the Board of Finance to move 10-52-24, a vote on the allocation of the remaining unallocated and reallocated American Recovery Plan Act ARPA funds as recommended by the first selectman? Can I have a motion for that?
So moved, Dave Gallo.
Thank you, Dave. And a second?
Second, Paul
Scott Zimmer.
Timpanelli.
Thank you, Scott. And we're prepared for discussion. Go ahead, Carl.
All right, thank you. At this time, just to give an overview of what we're doing this evening and an explanation of the spreadsheets that have been sent out for this meeting, I would ask the first selectman or a member of her office to give an explanation of the plans of the allocated funds and the various columns and sections on the spreadsheet.
Hi, this is the first selectman, Vicky Tesoro. Thank you, Chairman Massaro. I'm going to ask everybody certainly for their patience this evening. This is a difficult meeting to do via Zoom, so we're going to do the best we can here. We did send out backup for this meeting, including a large schedule that was prepared by the Finance Department that gives you an overview of the monies that have been spent thus far on the ARPA allocations that were decided way back in 2022 by both the Board of Finance and the Town Council. And what I did to try to make this a little bit easier, and I'm not sure that there's any way to make it very easy, is I tried to summarize the best I could in the allocation schedules. It's an Excel document that you were given, a 2-page document that summarizes what we spent, where we are to date, and what I'm recommending that we do to spend the monies that are on hand, which include monies that were not allocated. We did not make a total allocation back in 2022 for the people that were on the council and the Board of Finance that are here with us today. Probably remember that. We did have a reserve at that time. And at this point in time, we need to go ahead and make the final allocations by the end of this year. And as you will remember, all of the monies, all of the funding for all of these projects needs to be totally spent by December 31st of 2026. The Treasury Department somewhat changed the rules of the allocation of these funds. I have a date of a letter here, probably a month or so ago, where they're now saying that what they changed, it didn't change the fact that we have to make the allocations by the end of this year, but what they changed was how we had to do that. We actually have to have a contract, a PO, something in place for any expense that we are going to allocate the final funds for by the end of this year. That was not a rule that was in place when we first started this, but it is now. So it's incumbent on all of us to decide this evening, basically, how we're going to spend the end of this money, allocate the end of these funds. So again, what I've tried to do, and it is, I'm not going to say it's not confusing, but I've tried to simplify it as much as I could by the schedule that you see, that you should have in front of you. And I'm not sure, does everybody have that final allocation schedule? Okay, and
I
Bill,
believe we do.
okay, Bill, is it possible for you to share the final one from tonight? Because there were a couple changes that we made over the last couple days. Not significant ones, but everybody should be looking at the final product. Okay. So when the first line on that schedule says unallocated funds per the schedule attached, the schedule I'm referring to is that large spreadsheet that you received in the packet and was included in the backup material. When we finished the allocations back in 2022, we had I believe a number of, the number at that time was somewhere in the neighborhood of $455,000 that wasn't allocated. You'll see that that number has been somewhat reduced, and that's because of the amounts that we allocated to ARPA in the budget process. The 2024-25 budget, there was $140,000 some odd dollars that we allocated to ARPA. And that is why that number is no longer at 455. It has been reduced because of that, those items that we funded through ARPA, and was those items were approved by both the Board of Finance and Town Council during the budget process. And I can let you know what those numbers are if anyone is interested. So if you continue to go down from there, it says remaining balances on hand from the original allocations. So the amounts that you see here, and Bill, could you scroll down a little bit more to the total? So these are amounts from the original allocations that we made that are still on hand to date. And again, you can see these numbers in that big spreadsheet if you have questions as to exactly what they are. All of these items were approved by the Board of Finance and Town Council in 2022. All of the allocations that you see on hand were approved, and these are the remaining balances that remain on hand over the last couple of years. Some of these items have been spent, but not spent down to zero yet. So those are remaining balances on hand from the original allocations. Could you scroll down a little bit more now? Okay, right there. Thank you. So from these original allocations, it says balance not spent to be reallocated as requested by the town department heads. So the local meal programs, if you look above, you'll see that there's a balance on hand in the local meal programs of $58,113.36. That amount of money has been requested by our department head, Michelle, of the Senior Center and Social Services, that we should put that $58,000 balance into the nonprofit line. And she would like to use that money to allocate more grants to our nonprofits, our Trumbull nonprofits. And we will talk a little bit more about that, or she will. Michelle Jacob will, when we get to that part of the discussion. The library. The original allocation to the library included carpeting and modular study rooms. The balance that is on hand above of $162,185, Stefan would like to use that money for other projects. And so he is asking that that money be reallocated to the library of $162,185. And there is backup in the information that you were given as to exactly what programs and projects he wants to use that money to. And he can speak to that when we get to that part of the discussion. Going further down this schedule, it says original allocations balance on hand to be spent by 12/31/2026. So you'll see there that these are, again, from the summary above, amounts that are on hand that will be spent before 2026 ends. Again, these were amounts that were originally allocated and approved by both the Town Council and the Board of Finance. I'll go back. I just want to finish going through this, and then we can go back to questions that you may have about anything that I'm discussing right now. Next block is the original allocations balance to be reallocated for new requests. So these are the amounts, again, in the above summary, that are on hand right now that are going to go, either they're, the project is done and there's money left over. That's what most of these are. so these monies, I am suggesting that the group look at this additional $200,000 and make decisions as to how we want to spend this money. So there was a question brought up during public comments about the town facility study that has nothing to do with the senior center studies. This was an approval again of both the Board of Finance and the Town Council back in 2022 to spend that money to do a study of all the town buildings, similar to what the Board of Education did for all the school buildings. And it was a suggestion made back in 2022. That has not been done. Obviously, the money is still on hand, and I am recommending that we take that money and reallocate it to some of the items that you will see further down in this schedule that have to do mostly with town safety issues. As you will see, we can scroll down there. So let's go back for 1 second. So if you add that $200,000 to the available balance from the initial allocation, you come up to a figure of $516,732.28 that we will be talking about tonight, unless there are some other items people want to add to make that pot bigger from the remaining funds that are on hand. And you will see that I have additional projects requested by our town department heads for discussion this evening. And those include a lightning detection system that I am recommending that we use $60,000 of these funds for. We have 4 life pack units in EMS for $182,000. We have 2 small fields that the Dimitri Paris has suggested that we might want to think about refurbishing. The police department, if you may all remember, during the budget discussion, we talked about these gun optics, and there was a discussion at that time, and both the Board of Finance and Town Council approved $11,000 from the budget to be paid through ARPA for these gun optics. And then there was a discussion that we would like to take care of the entire department. So that $29,000, that additional $29,000 will do that. Public Works, there is a suggestion by our Public Works Director to replace some vehicles at $257,000. Because we have a limited amount of money, I reduced that request to $62,000. We also have 2 camcorders from TCTV that were removed from the budget last year that Kate Donahue, who is, runs the TCTV, has requested that we look at that perhaps to fund those cameras with ARPA money. The last suggestion here is a $75,000 amount to pay for a construction manager for the Veterans and First Responders Center. But that will be discussed further this evening as well. So could you go scroll down just a little more, Bill? Thank you. So that my total recommendation is $452,458.56, leaving a balance of around a little bit over $64,000. So that's where we are. I don't know whether I confused you more or I helped you more going through that, but I'm certainly willing to take any questions that anybody might have at this point and decide how we're going to go further on with the discussion here about allocating these remaining funds.
So thank you for that succinct summary. I actually think it's broken down very, very well. It's a lot of different figures, a lot of different items to consider. I have a couple of initial questions.
Sure.
So I understand that the ground rules changed recently, that we have to not only allocate, but now we have to contract.
Right.
So a lot of I'm assuming that what was allocated back in 2022 is in a safe harbor. We don't have to contract for the remaining work on those things. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I think you're correct. Maria might want to chime in if she knows something different, but I believe most of those projects are ongoing, so we already are involved with contracts and POs on those. So I don't believe that that's an issue.
So
yes, they're all encumbered. So there's a purchase order already in place for those projects.
Okay. That said, there's a number of purchase items as well as services that have to be bid for and contracted, inside of 60 days here. So I think we should bear that in mind, especially for things that are projects that may not even be designed or fully scoped out yet. It may just take longer than 60 days to get a contract for.
Chairman Massaro?
Yes.
So just for clarification, on the rules, if we're in process and we have, approval to go to bid for
Amy,
that.
your
if we're-
name, please.
I'm sorry, it's Laney McHugh, Chairman of the Board of Finance. If we have the purchase, or if we're going to bid for something, if it's not a signed contract, are we in process? Are we in compliance?
I don't know the answer. I'm not the one to answer that. I don't know if Attorney Shopik can give us any guidance on that, or not.
Dan Shopik, he cannot.
He cannot. So, I mean, obviously, the wise thing for us to do is to be sure that whatever we allocate tonight, we have time sufficiently to bid and contract for by December 31st.
Okay.
And that, that may impact some of the, something like one of my next questions, the various library projects for 162,000, if I understand. I think they still want to use that money for other projects. Is that right? Or is that being reallocated away from them?
I suggest we go
Wait,
through
I'm
those.
sorry, can I just answer Carl's question? Vicky Tesoro, First Selectman. Carl, you're right. This is all, when we had the discussions with the department heads, we made it clear that we have this issue now of having to make sure that we have a PO or a contract in place before the end of this year. So everyone knows that that was part of the issue here. And yes, the 162,000 from the library, the balance, the Stefan does want to reallocate that for additional library projects. I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, that information was sent out with the backup for this meeting. And if not, I believe Bill has it as well, and he can put it up for us. So whenever you're ready to talk about a particular department, let us know. But if there are more questions, just general questions, perhaps we should answer those first.
I have just one more general point. Again, on the same idea that we have 60 days or so to fully allocate as we must. Why would we hold any reserve after tonight?
That's a good question. Maria, do you want to talk to that?
Maria Pires, Director of Finance. Basically, we want to leave some money in case there's some of these projects that run over. And I actually suggested at the end of the meeting, after you decide what projects are to be done, that you give authorization to the first selectman to reallocate 2 different projects already approved if they go over budget. Or possibly allocate up to some of the nonprofit because, like you said, Carl, there's no bidding process. We don't have to wait, for a contract to put in place, and that might not be done by the end of December.
Okay, I guess we'll figure that out in due course this evening. A couple of hands raised. Mr. Wick?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Scott Wick, Town Council. I really building off of the chairman's comment and really a question/comment for the first selectman, because these are recommendations coming from your office. I'm a little less concerned about the department heads, many of whom are on this call, the urgency to have contracts or purchase orders in place. I'm more concerned about, for example, nonprofits who might be sharing in the ARPA money. I would urge, to the extent at the end of this meeting that there are, whether it's department heads, but particularly entities that might be in the nonprofit part of this discussion that are going to be getting ARPA monies, that they have to satisfy these purchase order / contract obligations. Because if money gets wasted here, I'm sure I'm not the only one who's going to be unhappy about that.
Thanks,
Thank
Thank you, Mr. Wick. Mr. Zimoff?
Scott Zimoff, Board of Finance. It's a quick question. So obviously now we need a purchase contract. How do we go about doing that for the non-for-profits? If we're giving them money to use over the next year, how is it that that's going to be documented to satisfy the new requirements?
Who are you asking?
Anyone who has the answer.
If I might try to answer that, Mr. Chairman, Cindy Katsky, Chief Administrative Officer. We do have a contract with each nonprofit that is awarded a grant, and they agree to the terms with specific reporting requirements and a schedule for disbursement of funds. And they do need to provide us with a budget for how they're going to spend the money. So we do have a contract. And it's executed, it's signed by the receiving organization at the time the award is made.
So if I could just follow up, this is First Selectman Vicky Tesoro. Obviously, it is our intention not to give any money back to from this ARPA funding. Obviously, that's not what any of us want to see happen here. And as far as the nonprofits are concerned, there's a committee that was set up who's done a very diligent job in creating the process for the nonprofits. And, Ms. Katsky can speak more to that committee process if you'd like, and perhaps Mrs. Galliano as well. I think the fact is that we will obviously make sure that everything is in place, that we are protecting the town's funds here. I think all of us are on the same, feel the same way that are in this meeting. So, thank you.
Okay, Ms. Isaac?
Yeah, Mary Isaac, Town Council. Just on those that same line, so for the congregate meal program, the fact that we just have a contract in place with the food provider, is that sufficient, or do we need to go a step further and assign that amount for social services?
Can I chime in? Hi, Michelle Jacob, Director of Human Services. Mary, I want to clarify, so for the congregate meal program funds, I'm not requesting to transfer those, just the local meal program funds. So the congregate meal program funds, we plan on utilizing the remaining funds by the end of probably this fiscal year or very close to it.
Okay, I thought it was by 2026. So that's why I was concerned it was going to go into the next year, and if there wasn't something signed, it would be lost.
Okay, yeah, we should be using those up latest January.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't see any other hands up with general questions. So why don't we proceed with the top of the spreadsheet. I don't want to reiterate what the First Selectman explained to us, but the upper part of the spreadsheet shows us about $315,000 that was never allocated. And that we're going to allocate this evening. And then original monies remaining on hand, again, as we have just discussed, are all intended to be spent. It's all in process. And then we get to original allocations, balances not spent to be reallocated as requested by town department heads. So, I have a question on the second item, which is the library to various library projects. I I see the $162,000 there, and I understand that they have plans to spend that on things that were not done and not allocated for. But if I'm wrong about that, let me know, but I'm confused why that number doesn't appear down below if it's a reallocation.
What the balance of that number of what was originally allocated is up in the first grouping. You see under the library, it says there's $42,185 plus $120,000.
Yeah.
So that $162,185 is what was left over from the original allocation made to the library. So certain projects, there was carpeting that was, and it might be better if Stefan explains this than me, but there was money left over from the carpet job, correct, Stefan?
Yes, Stefan Nielsen, Library Director. So we had originally allocated $370,000 to the library carpet project. We managed to get state pricing contract that considerably decreased the amount of money that was required by a lot. And as a result, we were left with about 162,000 and now we have that money remaining to spend.
Why don't you summarize what it is that the new projects that you want to use that money on?
So we have I've split it up into two different separate areas. One is renovations and furnishings. So 55,000 towards interior painting in the library. There's a broken loading dock door that would need to be replaced, which is for $5,600. A new stage curtain for the community room. That's $3,000. A sidewalk expansion for the story walk. So this is something that I'm working on with the Friends of the Library, which is our volunteer fundraising organization, creating a story walk for the kids outside the children's entrance. A new computer area, study area countertops. This is so we could replace the current cubicle type shapes that we have in the library. Data connections for the countertops and the front doors. Boardroom modular tables and chairs. This is to make it into a more accessible space to be used for a variety of different purposes. Public seating. So obviously throughout the library, we have always need for public seating. And then the second area would be for technology, services, and operations. So computer, print, fax, scan system. So right now our system is fairly antiquated. It requires people, if they have a print job, for instance, that they sit down at one of our computers, bring up their file and things of that nature, and then print it. This would allow them to print remotely using their phone, for instance, or from home, and then they come in and they pay for it and they pick it up. It would also allow them to do faxing, scanning, and high-speed copying for the purpose of.
Time is 7:45 and the library will close at 8 o'clock. Please come to a service desk if you need assistance finding materials.
Sorry about that. I'm in the library now. But this would allow us to do a lot more things for the town of Trumbull. And I will say, since the pandemic, the amount of people that come in just to do print jobs has shot up quite a lot. And so this is something clearly that people do want. A new people counter system. Right now, we're still relying on a little laser system that doesn't really do much for us. New people counter system will allow us to track per hour entrances to our building, and we could get better statistics as to when we're being used. And then finally, a new technology for the makerspace over at the Fairchild Library, which is always a good investment. And like these ones, I do have quite a lot, but like especially the ones up on the top, like the painting, the loading dock door replacement, the stage, the sidewalk. Those are all figures coming straight from quotes that I've already received, either working with Bill Chin or for the technology, for instance, or with Dimitri or Public Works in order to get figures for some of the other materials. So we already have quotes in place, or best guess estimates, but I can work on these very quickly if I'm given the approval to do so.
Okay, of all of these items, would you be able to categorize those which are absolute needs and those which have less immediate demand for?
The things that I would, on the list that I think are really important would be the painting of the interior side of the library. There's scuff marks, there's damage to the walls, things that could definitely, be maintained. And now that we have this wonderful new carpet, it definitely makes it more glaring when you see damage to the wall. The second one that I think is important would be the computer print fax scan system, simply because, as I said, the system we have really is quite antiquated. It can't really handle high size documents for whatever reason. That seems to be an issue. And of course, now that we're moving further and further into the future, high scan documents are becoming more common. Other thing that I would recommend would be the sidewalk expansion for the story walk. I think that, for one thing, the Friends have already raised money towards that. It would be great if we could move forward with that project. And it's a very visible, addition to the library and, the services that are given to the kids. Let me think. Those are the big ones. I really do also want, the new countertops. Right now, the countertops that we have for the study area in the back and the computers in the front, they are, basically cubicle type arrangements. And the ones in the back are, the classic sort of wooden desks that you might have experienced when you went to school yourself, because they were probably from the same time period. And that's not saying how old you are, sorry, but it is a testament to the fact that, some of this stuff is still original to the building, and we could use a definite upgrade in that regard.
So I mentioned the 60-day time frame to get everything bid and contracted for. I assume that's going to have to apply in this situation because these are different projects than what was previously allocated for. You confident you could meet that timeline?
I'm very confident I can meet this timeline, yes.
Okay, thank you. Chairman McHugh, you have a question?
No, more of a comment. I just wanted to say thank you to Stefan. I noticed that you did a very good job getting everything done that we had allocated prior and well under budget. I think it was reasonable to ask to reallocate that money. These projects were discussed, most of them, I believe, in our original discussion, and we reduced the amount that we allocated to the library. I think if we go back and look. So I would support this, and I hope that everybody will.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Lynn? All right, thank you. Stand by. Don't go anywhere. Okay, so we're in that other section there. Are there any other questions? This is under the original allocations, the balance not spent to be reallocated as requested by town departments. So we had the library item, the other items, the local meals to the nonprofits, which I think we've already heard about. And then the shift in the health department to paving. Any questions, comments about any of that?
Oh, wait, Carl, I'm not sure you're looking at the right document.
Oh, that's the one you took out.
Yeah, I took that out.
I'm
That's
looking at
now,
this
that's now in the,
before.
the bigger pot to be reallocated.
Okay, great. That's even better.
Yep.
All right, the next section was original allocations, balance on hand to be spent by the end of 2026. Any comments, questions on that section? I don't see or hear anything. Okay. Next section are original allocations, allocations and the balance to be reallocated for new requests. So in here is the $150,000 for town facilities study. My understanding that that money's going to be taken away from town facilities study and incorporated in the proposals below.
That would be correct.
Okay. So all of these items are coming out of the original allocations and going into the proposals for new.
Most of them, though, Mr. Chairman,
Show
are
up again.
balances from the projects that were done. This is balances that were left. So the original allocation to the project has been completed, and this is a balance of funds on hand.
Okay. Mr. Zimoff, you have your hand raised.
Zimoff, Board of Finance. Just a quick question on the $150,000 study. Now, I'm okay not doing it. I just want to know, are we looking to give the money back because we can't get it done in time and we're going to be turning around in a couple months asking for that money again? Or is it something that we're not going to be looking to move forward with at any point?
It's my recommendation that we use that money for the items that I recommended below, many of which are safety issues for the community, for our residents. I don't necessarily, I mean, we did talk about this a couple of years ago. I don't have any plans to come back and ask for more money to do a study of our town buildings. I think we can look to our Public Works Director and our Parks Superintendent to give us an overview of some of the buildings that need work. And I think a lot of us are aware of those buildings. There have been some studies done in the recent past, of some of our buildings in any event. And, you know, our Public Works Department, Parks Department are in our buildings all the time. And so can give us an overview perhaps at some point during our budget processes. I believe that we could better use that $150,000 to assist our residents in safety issues for the community.
Perfect. Thank you.
Switching screens. Okay, Mr. Shively.
So I'm just curious, when you shared the screen earlier, I'm looking at the backup that was sent out previously before the meeting. I think there were 2 extra things on that original allocations balance to be reallocated for new requests, 2 additional things on the one that you shared that raises the total to, what was it, 512,000, something like that.
There were 2. Yeah, yes, that's correct.
Is it possible to send that out to everybody? I mean, or to show that again? Because I wasn't clear on what the difference was, and if there are any other differences between.
So I can let you know exactly what those 2 differences are. One of them was the health department. Above on top, there was $20,136.70 that was remaining on hand from the original allocation. That those monies are now being put back into the total to be redistributed. That's based on advice from our Public Works Department, that money is not needed. And the other amount was for the audio induction system of $21,040.
Yeah.
Those 2 amounts, that's the difference between the first schedule or the earlier schedule that was sent out and this new schedule for this evening.
And there aren't any other differences other than those 2 things, right? Okay.
No,
And
well,
the
wait,
library.
hold on one
Go ahead.
second. I think there's
Go
a,
ahead.
there was a slight difference in the quote on the life packs, but it's minuscule. I think it was like $20 or something. The 192, 314.50 there. That figure, I believe, was different in the first schedule that was sent out, but it's a minor difference.
Yeah, it looks like like you said, it's less than $20 or about $20 or yeah, $22 or something like
Right.
that.
And that was the
Okay.
final quote that we're talking about getting quotes and making sure we can do this by the end of the year. That was the final quote that we were given this morning.
And the library audio induction, maybe this is for Stefan, I don't know, but was that taken out entirely, or is that just that we didn't need that much for that? Or did we do that?
Yes, we did it. When I initially, Stefan Lynn Nielsen, Library Director. So when we initially asked for the money, I actually asked just for the library. But at that point, I think it was that the Board of Finance and Town Council thought it was a great idea, so we were going to do more locations. So the money now also has been used for the Long Hill room at the town council chambers, the project here at the main library is set to go underway in January. But we did look at other locations like the senior center and the Fairchild Library, but unfortunately those don't have the technology there in order to make use of the assisted hearing technology. Would require substantial additional investment far beyond the 21,000 that is currently still there.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Chairman McHugh.
Thank you, Lainey McHugh, Board of Finance. I did want to clarify that was on my list to clarify that audio induction had been in most of the main rooms, and I've actually seen it in use, and people are very pleased with that. That was near and dear to my heart. I thank you for that. And I wanted to make sure that the drone was purchased. That was a thing that we had moved out of the hour for the thing. That's just the balance that was left. It came in less than we thought. And as far as the town facilities study, I believe that we have a lot of that information. I would also suggest that just as we've done with the vehicle inventories and things like that, that might be something that the Board of Finance could look at the internal auditor to assist the Department of Public Works and our park superintendent to help with a project such as that could be done in-house.
Yes, just to follow up, sorry, Chairman Massaro, that drone, that is the balance on the drone. The drone was purchased.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Pifko?
Yes, I have a question for for Stefan on the library, the $55,000 for painting. Is that for a quote from outside contractors, or do we have town painters that would do the work, and that is just for materials?
Yeah, this is Stefan Nielsen, Library Director. That quote is from the town painter that we have as a vendor for the town, preferred vendor. I'm not quite clear on what that status is, but that is what was recommended to me by the purchasing department.
So that's an outside contract.
It is an outside contractor, but apparently somebody that the town has as a on-hand relationship. On call. Answers your question. On call, sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Just a follow-up, how many square feet are getting painted? That's an awful lot of paint and labor, $55,000.
The building is 30,000 square feet, but if you have been on the inside of it, we have some really high walls in the main area. Those are like 32 foot ceilings. So that's part of it is, being able to maneuver around all that stuff. We also would require, the question became how would they be able to paint it? And so then it becomes, how we provide access to certain parts of the building when they're being used. It is more complicated than, just throwing up some paint on the walls, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Lemoyne?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to know, with the upgrade of printers, how it's going to save taxpayers, because right now they're paying 30 cents a copy at the library, which is outrageous. So if you're going to update the printers, how is that going to benefit the taxpayer?
It's 15 cents a sheet for black and white. It's 50 cents for color. I will say those are set through our printer contract with the actual toner company that provides support. That is CBS. Unfortunately, we can discuss that separately. However, this is a system that will allow people to have more access to being able to print. We suspect that a lot of people started not having printers at home anymore, simply because the price of having a printer at home just doesn't make much economic sense from home economic standpoint. The other aspect of it is that we're trying to provide, like, this isn't just a printer service for that purpose. It's also, as I said, faxing, scanning software that would allow them to have more services than before.
Mr. Lemoyne?
You still haven't answered the question. It's not cost effective. It's not cost effective to the taxpayer.
Well, I will say that we have never raised the cost of printing since I've been here. It was 15 cents for black and white, and then 50 cents for color when I first got here. So I don't know what the cost of inflation has been over that time period since the last 8 years, but we have never really changed that amount. If you would like us to, I can certainly recommend that we take a look at that at the next library board meeting to see about lowering the cost.
Mr. Foreman?
Thank you, Carl. Stefan, you mentioned the need to repaint the library as the current walls sort of contrast with the nicely new carpeted flooring. Did you require any quotes in terms of like what it would just cost to touch up the scuffed areas and sort of, at least reduce the contrast there between the nice new floor and the walls, rather than repainting the entire large vertical walls with complex painting requirements that you have discussed?
Fair question. There is damage to the walls, not just painting. At some point in time, somebody had decided to install artwork on those walls, and there's brass hooks that are still hanging in them. We can try and remove them, but I have a feeling that that's going to be a problem. I will say, the interior of the building hasn't been painted in several decades. That much is clear from just the discoloration on several walls inside. The places where there has been better maintained has been because we have gone through and actually have had those areas repainted, like for instance the children's department and the play areas down there. But as far as those larger spaces like the community room or the main area of the collection and the main part of the library, that just has not been touched for a long time.
Ms. Isaac?
Yeah, Mary Isaac, Town Council. Just to speak to the cost, it does seem expensive, but I did just look up Staples, and it says they start at 22 cents a page for black and white. So it looks like we have a deal, believe it or not.
Thank you, Ms. Isaac. Mr. Dorsey?
Tony, excuse me, Tony Dorsey, Town Council. I have a question about the replacement of vehicles under Public Works. This is specifically under additional projects. Bill, could you please put the quotes up or the backup up on the screen to share?
Sure. For which item is this?
This is replacement of vehicles and equipment per schedule attached for Public Works.
Gotcha.
I believe George is on the call as well.
Yes, I am.
Okay. I recognize that. Thank you for that. I recognize that not only do you have this here, but in the capital improvement plan, there is also, I believe, a line item for a Ford F-450 truck. I want to be sure whether we've separated from here the F-150 or F-450.
Yes, George Estrada, Director of Public Works. The 450 qualifies for our normal capital bonding because of the average life that we are able to maintain those vehicles for approximately 20 years.
Okay.
These are vehicles that have more of a 10-year life cycle. So they do not qualify for the capital. And we have tried to fund the replacements through the operating budget. And they keep getting kicked down the road. So we're arriving at a point where we have a number of vehicles that qualify in this category that are smaller, that will not be suitable for funding through capital, that really arrive at a point that we have to replace them.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions in this this section? Mr. Zimoff.
Scott Zimoff, Board of Finance. Just a quick question about those trucks. I know we've had trouble getting vehicles timely. Will we be able to get contracts for those and be able to get them?
We will have them under contract, but we have experienced pretty extensive waits for some of them, almost a year and a half at times. But I believe if we have them in contract, that they would be okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Ms. Sather, please.
Hi, I have a quick question about the life packs. Just 182,000. What's the lifespan on those? What are they? And B, what's the lifespan on those? How long are we gonna have them for? I'm not sure who I'm supposed to direct that question to.
That would be me, Chief Colin Bassett, EMS. So the Life Pack 35s that are in the request, they are cardiac monitors / defibrillators. They are pretty much the staple of what allows a paramedic to do what they need to do. These are the newest ones that are available. It's their newest platform. The last platform was the Life Pack 15, which was supported for around 14 years. Prior to that, it was a Life Pack 12. So these will definitely be supported for the next 10 years at least. This would replace aging ones that we have that are soon to no longer be eligible to be put on a service contract or repaired through the manufacturer directly. And they've, newer technology on them, CPR Insight. Definitely a better outcome for patients overall. They're part of a requirement for the state minimum equipment list as a paramedic level ambulance to have a cardiac monitor defibrillator. We use Stryker equipment pretty much exclusively. They are state contract. They are also a preferred vendor. So that would replace the current ones that we have on the fleet, bring us up to complete standardization, and support our mission with almost 6,000 calls that we're looking to hit this year. So
thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, I don't see any other hands raised. So there's the section original allocations, the balance to be reallocated for the new requests. Those are all items to be subtracted from prior approvals. and to be added to the 315,000 that hasn't yet been allocated. Any questions on those items? All right. Takes us to the last section, which are additional projects requested by department heads. And I think we've already had kind of a summary of much of this already. Do we have any questions, comments, discussion? Ms. Gaudiano?
Thank you, Chairman Massaro. Just two general questions for the appropriate people. So would love to understand or get an explanation of the lightning detection system and how we parse that out. Right, there's a $124,000 request, but a $60,000 recommendation. So if somebody could speak to that. And then George, to put you back on the spot, if you could just talk through the vehicles and provide some clarity between, again, the request and the recommendation. Both of those pieces would be helpful. Thank you.
I'll start if that's okay with the chairman.
Fine, thank you.
George Estrada, Public Works Director. We had supplied a list that was a total of $257,500. The part of these were, we have aging Equinoxes that are used by the tax assessor and the planning and zoning department, the P&Z department, when they do their field visits periodically. Those vehicles have aged out. And what I'd like to do, with your permission, and Doug, I have Doug Bogan, which is our fleet maintenance director on this call. I'm going to ask him to just pick up where I'm leaving off so that he can provide more depth to this conversation. Doug?
Good evening, Doug Bogan. I'm fleet manager. The two vehicles that are aging out are 04 and 08 Trailblazers that the tax assessor and planning and zoning use. My plan would be to replace follow me here, replace the building department, two of the building department vehicles that get used daily, and give those two vehicles that have over 100,000 miles on them, but are still in relatively good shape, to the planning and zoning and the tax assessor, who use them sporadically, to just save money by not having to give them new vehicles also. So just kind of like downgrade those vehicles. The two Trailblazers are impossible to get parts for, and they're end of life. The other vehicles in that plan, we have 3 pickup trucks that are used as fuel trucks to fuel up machines on jobs, and used for the senior operators. The cabs themselves are in good shape. They only have probably 40,000 miles on them average, but the bodies are rotting off them. It's a common thing with the pickup trucks. It's the environment we live in, between the salt and the dirt and everything to them. I can replace the bodies on these. I think a total of, George, correct me, wasn't it like $26,000, something like that?
$29,500.
$29,500. So for less than $30,000, I can make those 3 trucks, like new again, if you want to say that. They're fine mechanically, they're just rotting. And the last one is a supervisor's truck. We will have a new general foreman. Tommy Baldwin retired. And right now I have 8 supervisors' vehicles. We have 1 spare. The spare is an old supervisor's vehicle that is just end of life. There is nothing left of this thing. The body's rotted. The rear end is making noise. The transfer case is making noise. It's just putting good money after bad. So my plan would be to give the general foreman a new vehicle and use the existing car for the general foreman as the spare. It's got 130,000 miles, I believe, on it now, but it would still be fine as a spare truck. Like I said, any one of those 8 supervisors right now, if his truck has to come in for more than a few hours, that's their mobile office. They're off the road. They can't do their job. I have to have something to be able to put them in depending on whether it's a highway supervisor, a park supervisor, a WPCA supervisor. I have to have something to put them in while I do maintenance. It's a cycle. So that would be what the last UC 36 TR would be. Just again, downgrading vehicles to extend their life.
And if you had to make the horrible choice, sorry, Ashley Gadiano, Town Council, if you had to make the horrible choice of prioritizing which vehicles got done and you couldn't have 257,000, which ones would you do?
It wouldn't be the 257. This would be 153.
153, sorry,
500.
yes.
If 257 is if I add in 2 park ranger trucks. The park ranger trucks are rough, but they're not rotted and they're okay. If I have to swing an engine or a transmission in one, I have one right now at the transmission shop I'm getting done. Those I can keep going. I would love to put a new one in the fleet, but I pick and choose where I can get. If I had to say something about the 153, I honestly would take the 2 Equinoxes out. I could keep the Blazers going as best I can, and I think it would be easier on the operating budget to find a way to put $30,000 in for an Equinox here or there than it would be to try to replace a pickup truck. That's my thought.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gaudiano. Mr. Kingsbury?
Hi, good evening, everyone. It's Megan Murphy, the Emergency Management Director. I do have Andy Kingsbury with me, Deputy Emergency Management Director. And if the chair and board and commissioners would so entertain us for 5 minutes. We do have a brief presentation we'd like to run through for you all to fully explain the lightning detection system, its purpose, and how we got here. So if we can just share our screen. Are you all able to see that? We can't see that.
No, I don't see one.
Okay, go to one moment, please. Sorry, go back to Zoom. Top about there. Click. Okay, go to share screen. What happened? All right, well, while Andy is getting this, there we go. Up there. Okay, now do you see it?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay, so just really quick, the history of how we got here and why we're here. As many of you know, we have hundreds, if not thousands of people who use our athletic fields and our parks on a daily basis, throughout the year. We have had numerous incidents where we have had severe weather roll in rapidly on us. One, if you all remember, when we had the rain bomb, when we had 7 inches of rain in less than an hour, back in 2018. We had the microburst tornado that came through this past August, pretty much out of nowhere for us. Our concern is obviously the safety of the residents, the safety of our children who are using all of these fields and park systems throughout town. So we looked into a lightning detection system. This lightning detection system is the same detection system that is used at the golf course, where we would be able to detect lightning. And also it has 4 options. So we could sound sirens and clear fields for lightning. We could sound horns and strobes and let people know that there is a possible tornado coming our way. And I hate to say it, but it's also a way for us to alert staff, faculty, children, athletic players who are out on fields if there is an act of violence where we do need to clear the field. There's a separate tone that we can set off for that as well. Right now, if there's an intruder on the fields that we need to clear the fields for, the only way we can do it is up at the high school is by using air horns. And that's how they're trained to clear the fields with that. The system that we are proposing is very user-friendly. There are QR codes that the public can scan, and once there's lightning, they can scan the QR code and they can watch on their phone to see when they are going to be able to resume their game. I know many parents out there, they see that lightning and they're like, no, how much longer? Well, this will tell you exactly how much longer until it's clear and you can resume your game. Some other things that we have is that this does have the option to tie into our splash pads. And so we can shut water down to our splash pads. And obviously water and lightning do not mix. So this is another safety measure that can be put into place. I'm going to let Andy talk a little bit about where the difference between the 60,000 and the 124,000 come in.
Thank you, Megan. Andy Kingsbury, Deputy Emergency Management Director. So we did a lot of research on these different systems. And I just wanted to throw this screen up here to show you the different considerations that we had. Looked at 4 different vendors. So we are definitely ready to move on this project should we be given a go-ahead. And some of the things that we really wanted to focus on is, do we need to have 110 volt hookups to these? Do we need to rely on the internet? Do we need to rely on cell phones and such? And turns out the system that's up at Tashwell Knolls is run off of solar, has battery backups. It runs off of a VHF radio system. So really everything can go on, and this system will still work. So I think we can all appreciate that. And there's some other considerations that you can see that are up there. The upfront cost on the system we're going to propose is high, but the reoccurring costs are much, much lower than some of the other systems. A lot of the other systems have a subscription based. So here's what we're proposing is to put a sensor up at Trumbull High School and a couple horns and strobes up at Trumbull High. But the benefit of this is if we're within 1.5 miles to 2 miles on the limits, we can actually hit Beach's Pool and set off the sirens and horns down there for the pool, the splash pad, and we can actually also have horns and sirens go off at Twin Brooks, specifically around the farmers market area. So we thought this was a really great feature, that this is very expandable. How does that work? So here's some 2-mile radiuses, Tashwell Knolls, which is existing. If we were to have the funding, we could put a system at Old Mine to warn people. We could either use Tashwell Knolls or a sensor at Trumbull High to activate up at Indian Ledge, which, as we all know, is a pretty active site. Obviously, Trumbull High is really a target hazard for us. We talked about Twin Brooks, we talked about beaches, Unity Park, Island Brook Park, and the fields up at Madison Middle. So depending on the scope of this, and I know the first selectman put in a request for 60,000, so it won't cover all this, but we could hit all these different sites. And in the green, this is Canoe Brook Lake. I think we have Christian Heritage School, we have Pinewood Lake, and St. Joe's. So when we did the research, we found that a lot of counties and a lot of towns, particularly down in the Jersey area, we did a lot of research, and they offered up their signal to private entities. So whether it's private schools, private recreational facilities. So it would be no cost. They would have to obviously provide their own equipment, but I just think it'd be a great community thing for like a St. Joe's or some of these other recreational facilities to be able to use the system. So that would be a full system that we fully propose, and it is very expensive. It would be about $124,000.
For the 60,000, we would be able to put the sensor at Trumbull High School and be able to cover Twin Brooks and Beach's Pool only. So that's the difference between the 60,000 and the 124,000. For 124,000, we basically cover every major athletic outdoor facility that the town has.
So we'll go ahead and show you some pricing on here. So as we mentioned, just shy of $124,000 from this one particular vendor that we recommended, and it is compatible with Tashwell Knolls. Would cover all those sites, and you can see the ongoing costs on this. Other good systems, and they all were all good systems. Megan and I were both comfortable with them all, but you can see, a $17,000 and a 24/5, ongoing subscription service there. And you can see the annual average on those. And then for the $60,000 that the first selectman recommends, you can see the cost breakdown on that. And the annual maintenance is about $1,000, maybe a little bit less on years 3, 4, and 5. So I don't know if you have any questions on that or want to see anything else but we're here to answer questions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kingsbury and Ms. Murphy. Ms. Satin, you have a question or a comment? Ms. Satin, we don't hear you. Unmute.
Oh, I am, and I've
Oh,
been
there you
talking
go.
for quite a while. I'm Nikki Satin, Town Council. Thank you very much for that. I'm a big supporter of this, and I'd like you to know that first. So thank you. Did we discuss grant money at all? Did you already receive some grant money for this? I feel like this was discussed, or can you touch on that? Did we look at anything?
Sure. So Megan Murphy, Emergency Management Director. Yes, I have put this in the budget for the past 2 years. It has been removed both years. We have looked for grants, and while there seems to be grants out there for just about everything, we have been unable to find a grant that would cover this.
Thank you.
Mr. Cinto, please.
Tony Cinto, Town Council. I got a couple of questions. Is this a prescription, the right word, a year-over-year cost to keep it running? That's the first question. Second question is, how does this system report back to the internet? Is it wireless? Do you have to run cables to the into the school, for example?
Deputy Emergency Management Director Kingsbury, be happy to answer those questions, Mr. Cinto. Some of them are subscription based. Those were the ones we looked at the chart that were higher. This particular one really is very low cost years, 1 through 5 or 2 through 5. So really just maintenance on them. So how does it report back? It reports back through the sensor. If we want to get alerting, so in other words, it could text message myself, Park Superintendent, the board of e-folks coaches, but that would require a internet connection. But if the internet went down, the whole system would still work because it's transmitting wirelessly over a VHF radio signal up to 2 miles away to a solar powered, of course, with a battery backup, horns and siren. So that's what was very appealing about that for us.
Yeah, but you're talking about text messaging. Anything that goes back to your phone is going to need an internet connection or a wireless connection.
Yes, that's correct. So we would lose that functionality, but the rest of it would still work. And that would be true of all the systems.
I'm talking about if forget about if it goes down or not, the internet connection goes down. How are you going to get it back to the internet?
So, Megan Murphy, Emergency Management Director. There is a receiver right now. We're proposed, if we do just the high school one, we'll just use that as an example. There'll be a receiver that'll go onto the roof of the high school, and wiring will go down to a computer that'll be most likely in the main office of the high school. And there is where the control panel is that yes, would need internet access to be able to send out, text messaging and whatnot. But because of the solar backup and because it's on radio frequencies, if we did lose internet or if we did lose battery back or power, the system would still function. Yes, those text messages and things like that would not work, that component of it, but the rest of the system would still stay up functioning.
So yeah, so it has to go back to the internet at some point to text message people on their phones, correct?
Yeah.
Yes or no? So,
yeah.
So here's my last question. What is the lifespan of this equipment?
So, Andy Kingsbury, I guess both of us can answer this. Well, we were quite impressed that when we talked to folks, I called references. They have these 20-year-old systems that are still working great for them. I don't know how old Tashua Knowles. Actually, Tashua Knowles just changed theirs out, so it's not that old up at the golf course. But from what we're understanding and hearing, very good reliability on these. I talked to down in New Canaan. I talked to some folks down in New Jersey that have had them. So they're very happy.
All right, last question. I'm sorry. And is there a good line of sight for where you're going to put this to get the receiver back to the high school?
Megan Murphy, Management Director. So yeah, so the receiver would go on the roof of the high school is what we're anticipating so that we can get, high enough up there.
But is there good line of sight? I know it's gonna go on the roof. Is there anything in the way? Is the bleachers in the way?
No.
Is there air conditioner unit in the way? Is there anything in the way that's gonna compromise the signal?
No. The rep came out and went to all the sites with us and looked over everything, and he said our sites for receiver locations are very good.
And we have the equipment to hook it up to the internet in the school? Or is that a cost that's already worked into this?
It's all worked into the pricing that we got.
And the cable run from the roof down to the computer rooms worked into there also?
Yes, everything.
Okay. Is it a fiber from the roof? Or is it is it a copper hookup?
The fiber.
Okay. You're gonna use armored cable or trunking cable?
They didn't get that detailed with us. They just said that it was a fiber cable that would run down.
Okay, I would recommend using armored cable. There's less chance of being cut.
Okay, we can make a note of that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Cinto. Mark Mascolo, please.
Yeah, Mark Mascola, Board of Finance. Just a quick question. How is this different than just having the alert set up on your phone that when lightning is close or there's a storm gonna come, I get an alert on my iPhone or my phone that tells me there's a storm coming, or I just use my good old-fashioned eyeballs and look in the sky?
Megan Murphy, Emergency Management Director. We have had repeated incidents where while we all see children with their heads in their phones constantly, when they're out there playing their games, their eyes are not on the sky. And we have also had instances where we have had coaches not necessarily had their eyes on the sky when they needed to. During games and you have umpires and referees out there, they're trained more to keep an eye on the sky. But we have had multiple incidents where weather has been coming in. Just to give you a quick example, we were under a tornado warning. I was literally on my phone in my kitchen watching the tornado come up from Westport, trying to talk to the director of security at the high school, who was trying to relay to the athletic director to get the kids off the field. It was, to say a stressful couple of minutes there was an understatement. Trying to get all these athletes off the field and having no way of quickly alerting them to clear. Coaches aren't supposed to be looking at their cell phone when they're practicing and when they're training. Athletes aren't, again, looking at their phones. It's just a level of safety. We've had instances where the cross-country team is running through the trails behind the high school, and they have no idea that weather's coming. And Mike King, the athletic director, is out there on the golf cart trying to chase them all down to get them out of there. So this would be heard. Obviously, if they're in the woods, it's not going to be seen, but they're going to hear the sirens and know that they need to get to safety and seek shelter.
It just seems, I don't know, we all made it through life without a lightning detection system. It just seems like a lot of money. But I'm all done. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Mascola. Mr. Wolf?
Hi, Richard Wolf, Town Council. I absolutely, coaching multiple youth sports over the past decade, I'd absolutely agree with what Ms. Murphy just said. You don't necessarily even see it. Maybe even a parent has to run up and tell you. Megan, just two quick questions. Could you elaborate a little more on, you said there's an active shooter feature, because that's always one of my nightmare scenarios. And then the map that you had up there, it looked like there were gaps in the map. But I just wanted to make sure that it would definitely encompass all the youth sports fields in town. Thank you.
So Megan Murphy, Emergency Management Director. As far as the gaps, we made sure that we covered, I'd say probably 95% of all the athletic fields. You know, fields that we did not have covered on there, Nothnagel, unfortunately, without Nothnagel would require their own entire receiver. It's so far out there, it's not picked up on anything. The athletic fields behind the Board of Education. There are random little fields throughout town that are not included in this. I mean, I can happily put them there, but I'm going to need a lot more money. But the fields that have the most activity on them: Indian Ledge, Ketchel, the high school, behind Madison, our Unity, Island Brook, where we have people constantly out there on a daily basis. Again, Twin Brooks with the farmers market and people walking the paths. All those areas are covered under the full plan. As far as the intruder situation, if there were a call received or there was a situation happening, and I hate to use this, but let's just say at the high school, somebody came up the back way and they knew that there was a problem, a button can be pushed from within the school that would set off a certain tone that people would know to clear the fields. Like, is it going to take public education to teach everybody what all this stuff is? Yes. That was one of the things that I was really impressed with this particular vendor that we spoke to. They basically are willing to give us as much public information, support, and teaching, and their lessons learned from trying to train the public as to what these different systems and different tones mean. So, if somebody can hit a button, if they received a phone call in the office that there's a situation, somebody can hit a button and set off that alternate tone to let students know.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Wolf. Mr. Wick, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Scott Wick, Town Council. This is a question for Attorney Shopik. Assuming that this lightning detection system was approved, town implemented it. Here's my concern and here's my question. Are we as a town now taking on some assumption of responsibility for alerting residents to lightning strikes and or dangerous active shooter types of arrangements? And if that system fails or isn't as good as someone may think it should be, is the town, by implementing the system, taking on a legal risk if the system fails or doesn't meet whatever reasonable standards there may be for lightning systems?
This is Dan Shopik, town attorney. Basically, everything that we've talked about tonight, if it doesn't work, we've assumed some risk. All right, the Public Works Department talked to us about trucks, and if the trucks, we heard that the trucks or cars are beyond their useful life, and if they fail as they're going down Churchill Road and they hit another car, we've assumed some risk. It's part of the game, but or part of government. But what you're doing here is trying to reduce the risk to people in public health situation. So, nothing is fail safe. But you can ask the same question, Scott, about anything else that the town undertakes to do. It's the best answer I can give you.
Thank you,
Great,
Mr.
thank you.
Thank you both. Ms. Satin, you have a question.
Yeah, I just want to add that the weather is much more extreme than when we grew up. And I don't know if anybody had a child over at Trumbull High School when flooding happened a couple years back, but it's not like when we were kids and we just ran off a field. Weather is extreme. It's getting more extreme by the day. So just wanted to add that.
All right, thank you, Ms. Satin. Any other questions on the lightning detection system? I think we've covered that fairly well. Anything else under the additional projects requested by department heads and recommended by the first selectman? I think we've hit pretty much all of them.
Mr.
Right.
Chairman.
Yes.
Thank you.
Welcome
I'm
back.
not, we have not talked about a couple things. Or actually, we haven't talked about a few of these things, and I don't know if anyone has particular questions when we come to approve them. We have not talked about the 2 fields on here recommended by Parks and Rec, nor have we talked about the gun optic sites, which is pretty much something we discussed during the budget process, nor we have talked about the money for the construction manager of the Veterans Center. So, if somebody has questions about those, we really should at least touch a little bit on each of them so that it's clear what's being asked for here by the different departments.
All right.
We'd like to do that.
Chairman McHugh, go ahead. I thought I just asked for questions, but go ahead, Ms. McHugh.
You did.
Lainey McHugh, Board of Finance. I would like to talk about the construction management aspect for the Veterans Center. And I do want to speak to the gun optic sites during the budget season. There was a request to do I believe it was to do half of the gun sites and to take some of that money from ARPA. And we asked for the total to do all of them at once if we were moving some to ARPA. And I would really recommend that we move forward with that so that they have that equipment. As far as the Veteran and First Responder Center, there's a request from the first selectman to use $75,000 towards the construction manager thing. I'd like George Estrada to speak to that. I understand that there are 2 types of construction managers and there's different costs associated with that. So I'd just like a little bit of information with that. And also to know how we're a year into the project without a construction manager in place to date. So I'd just like some information for that.
Sure. George Estrada, Public Works Director.
Determine out, Mr. Estrada, just before you speak. I know the information we were given refers to a construction manager. My understanding is that the committee was seeking to hire a clerk of the works who would oversee the project on behalf of the town and assist the committee with their duties. Construction manager probably is a lot more than the $150,000 I've heard about. A construction manager is somebody who actually can act as a general contractor on behalf of the town, but I'll let Mr. Estrada explain that. And maybe, I don't know if Mr. Baldwin is at this meeting or a member of the building committee, but you can clarify whether it's a clerk of the works or a construction manager that is sought to be funded. Go ahead, Mr. Estrada.
George Estrada, Public Works Director. Mr. Baldwin and I have met over the course of the last several weeks. We've included George Wiles, the architect, also, and some of the committee members have also been part of the conversation. We are labeling it construction manager. The delivery of the service is still to be determined. We're working with our town attorney, James Nugent, who will advise us as we arrive at that. It became apparent because of the way we've needed to execute this project in phases, that we really need to have someone that is overseeing the town's best interest in delivering this building. There are various ways of delivering something like this. It could also be could have been a general contractor up front. But a general contractor obviously is going to have the incentive to save money, cut costs, and put it into their pocket, not into the town's pocket. So when we start exploring something like construction management, that person is an agent for the town, and we are working with the purchasing agent currently, developing a specification, because we are going to do a procurement. and established a pre-qualified, a list of a few pre-qualified service providers that can do any of these, whether it's provide a clerk of the works, it's a construction manager, or various other methods. But all of that will be bid so that we have hourly rates, and then the committee, under advisement by the town, will determine what the best method of delivering the project will be, what will be in our best interest and most economical.
Well, again, we have this 60-day window to decide what we're hiring, bid for the services, and then make the selection. The committee has to do that and then bring it to the council for approval. So, time is really of the essence here.
Can I just ask a question about clerk of the works and that?
Mhm.
So my understanding is that you, in construction management, you can have the construction manager at risk and a construction manager that would be hired at an hourly rate.
As an agent.
That as an agent, is that what's the difference between that and a clerk of the works?
There are different levels of skill sets. The construction managers, from my experience, assist with the procurement process of all of the trades that will be that will be procured. But the construction manager also will review plans before they go to that bid package goes to the street, and will advise on the specifications to arrive at the best value.
Okay. I agree that there needs to be oversight for the project. I'm a little concerned that we haven't had that in place till now. I would assume that if it has to go to the town council for approval, that the town council should have the ability to decide at what level the town would want to have someone managing that. How would that be in place by the end of the year?
Well, I'm going to ask a question of our town attorney to just clarify something. If we do a public procurement and we have established the fee structure, do we need to go to council after to approve a service? Because we engage engineering firms throughout the year for designing bridges and culverts, and we don't go to the council to bring any of these for approval.
I'd have to take a quick look at the building committee rules. A lot of what happens along the way for a building committee, we would have to explore that, George. This is Dan Shopik, town attorney. And I guess we have had construction managers in the past. I try to see what was done then. I understand what you're saying, but under building committee rules, for instance, we did have to approve the architect. We have to. This is a fairly responsible job that I would be inclined to say that town council approval would be necessary, but I would withhold final determination until I can review the rules.
George,
if town council is required, then I don't see that we would be able to do that before the first of the year.
I don't have a problem with putting a CM in place or a clerk of the works or whatever it needs to be. I wonder why this wasn't part of the scope of the project. So I don't think there's
Dan Shopik again. I don't think it's a question of scope of the project. I think that it's a question, reach a point where determination is made that this additional level of oversight is necessary. I think I would guess that the committee, and there are some committee members here. I think the chief is on the committee. Mr. Lemoyne is on the committee. I'm not sure who else, but but at the point that you see that that level of oversight is necessary, then that I think that's why they're coming back with it. Clerk of the works, in my experience and my estimation is a much lower level of qualification. So that person, clerk of the works, would be watching the construction maybe on a day-to-day basis, on a week-to-week basis, to approve the work that has been accomplished, but not what George has described as somebody who actually reviews the plans and specifications, goes through the contract documents, everything before it goes out to bid. That's not, in my experience, that's not what a clerk of the works would be doing.
Okay. So then the level of construction management, there's construction management at risk and there's a construction management agent of the town. My understanding is that an agent of the town would be somebody that you contracted at an hourly rate and to monitor the project. So if you wanted them on site 40 hours, you would pay them 40 hours a week. If the construction manager at risk, they then assume the responsibility of managing the project within budget. So is that a different level? Like how would that work?
Well, Chairman McHugh, a construction manager is basically the general contractor. Now, I don't want to mix. I don't want to use those terms where the town actually, even with a construction manager, can actually be the general contractor. When you hire a construction manager at risk, like we did with Frenchtown way back when, they come in with a guaranteed maximum price, and they are in complete charge of all of the construction, hiring, firing, subs, and so forth. It's a more expensive proposition, because they, in some instances, I don't want to get too complicated, but based on the experience I had, sometimes you are duplicating insurances and so forth, and doubling the cost of some of those things, but oftentimes they're worth it. So, for instance, Frenchtown School is a much bigger project than the Veterans Center. Veterans Center is a $3 million project. Frenchtown was closer to 30 million. You needed that kind of oversight. I think to this date, the Public Works Department has basically been overseeing the construction with the committee, and they've reached a point where they need something more.
Okay.
They've not come to the council yet, but the time is now, especially if you're going to expend, upwards of $150,000 or more. I don't have the Veterans Center budget in front of me as to what they've allocated for that kind of construction management or clerk of the works, but obviously looking for $75,000 to $150,000 for that type of a service.
Okay. How do we ascertain then what the right amount that you would allocate for, and if it could be in place by year end?
I can give you how we've arrived at the number you're considering. And we used a fee of $150 an hour, and it's an hourly fee. And the anticipation is 2 to 3 days a week on site, 2 to 3 8-hour days a week on site. And we're using 39 weeks as a calculator. And that's from discussions with companies that do this type of work, after sharing with them the square footage of the building, the type of construction, and just saying, from your experience, what has been the order of magnitude and what are the fees normally charged. And that's how we arrive at the number that we're considering, which is $150,000.
So George, if I can follow up on that. So you're looking for really a clerk of the works type person. That's not construction management.
Well, again, it will be the skill set that will drive the fee for the hourly fee for that person.
Okay, I see Attorney Nugent is with us. And so Attorney Nugent, can you address the scenario, please?
Yeah, I can add some to the discussion here. Chairman, I think you did describe accurately a construction manager at risk. But the GMP is often used, guaranteed maximum price, although note that can change if there are changes in the project for some valid reason. But They run the show. They would run the entire project, start to finish. They hold the contracts, they deal with the subcontractors, they do the scheduling and whatever else is needed. The CM as agent is a different scope. They're not running the project. They're not contracting with the subcontractors and suppliers. The town would have to hold those contracts, and the CM as agent would advise the town, would monitor the project, supervise to some extent, but they don't have any contractual relationship with the subcontractors on the project. And just a little terminology, the clerk of the works is kind of an old, maybe you'd call it an old fashioned, but it's an old word for owner's representative.
Mhm.
So an owner's representative is just on a limited basis the eyes and ears of the town with the owner on the project. So just to try to define the different roles that are involved there. But a CM at risk would be the most expensive, but also the most comprehensive type of service you can get from a construction professional on the project. So, if you limit the hours and you just want to, excuse me, a CM agent, you'll only get that number of hours of work. Hope I answered the questions.
I think that's my understanding as well. Attorney Nugent, thank you. Gonna drink some water. Christina Laris, please take the floor.
Sure. Thank you so much, Chairman. Christina Laris, Board of Finance alternate. So my question is, I think, perhaps twofold. So that if it turns out that we're unable to fund this via ARPA, either because perhaps it does not get approved tonight, and or if it does get approved but cannot be contracted within the short time window that we have, is it safe to presume that the building committee would eventually be coming to the town for a supplemental for this same type of role? Because it sounds as though it is a dire need, and it's probably something that is a need that's been unaddressed for a while. I don't know who that's who to really address that question to, because I feel like, George, that this is a little bit like not your area to answer a question, other than you think it's a need, and if we didn't get approved this way, you'd want it to become approved another way.
I believe it's a prudent service to put in place to protect the town's interest. We're building a facility that a building committee comprised of volunteers have been tirelessly working at. At the end of the day, a building will be delivered and the town will inherit that facility forever. So again, it's in our best interest as the town to be sure that we have someone overseeing this job, that when we do accept the keys, it's something that is
fit for purpose. It does all that it's supposed to do. It
Exactly.
doesn't have any gaps or things missing or
absolutely
flaws or whatever. That certainly sounds very logical and makes sense to me as a non-building professional. But I guess the other thing that comes to mind, and might be on the minds of some other people, is that, this is a very important project. It's a project that a lot of people support. I've supported it in not just as, a notion, but even a fundraiser effort that the Rotary Club has done. My husband and I participated and gave some donations towards that. But one of the things that came up many, many times when this came before the town was that the notion that there wouldn't need to be another ask for funding that came from the town. And granted, this is ARPA funding, so it's federal grant money that we have, but there's a really short time window. And I just am concerned about that crunch of that time window. And then it becomes a town responsibility for funding after there was a period of time when, we all thought that there was going to be enough other funding in place from federal and other grant money sources that it wouldn't be needed. That's it from me.
Thank you very much. Mr. Foreman?
Yes, thank you. Question regarding the term clerk of the works. Is clerk of the works, for lack of a better phrase, a professional designation? And does this person have some sort of explicit fiduciary responsibility to the town of Trumbull to fulfill that duty that is in our best interest, to make sure that those that are providing services are doing what they ought to be doing? And then finally, what is the selection process for identifying this individual to be, quote unquote, clerk of the works?
Thank you, Mr. Foreman. Mr. Nugent, do you want to answer those questions?
Yes, I think I can. Clerk of the Works is a designation for a representative of the owner of the property involved in the construction, in this case, the town. And I wouldn't call it a fiduciary duty. That's the highest duty imposed by law, but they would have a contractual obligation to fulfill their contractual duties to the town of Trumbull. It's like any contractor or vendor we hire has a contractual duty to fulfill the terms of their contract. So, I'm sorry, and your third question was what?
The third question was, what is the formal selection process for identifying the clerk of the works? Like how do you figure out who is the best clerk of the works?
We would solicit bids. And there are construction professionals that, will bid these projects. I mean, it happens all the time.
There's a lot of responsibility in this position to make sure that whoever's doing the work should be doing it properly. And we're relying on their expertise to be truthful and right? I mean, I feel like there's some.
Well, I think, Mr. Foreman, I think what you're trying to say is, this is a professional person or firm that would serve in this capacity. And the request for qualifications would go out through purchasing, and bids would be opened in the normal course. The RFQ would be put together with the purchasing agent, maybe with the assistance of Mr. Estrada, perhaps Mr. Nugent. It goes out, the bids come back, and there's the committee would select that person and bring that person for approval to the council. That's how it would work. But it's a professional person who would be serving in that capacity as the clerk of the works.
That's correct. I mean, I was the chairman of the high school building committee. It was a $70 million project. We had an owner's representative / clerk of the works, essentially the same role, in addition to a CM at risk, which was O&G, and they ran the project. And our owner's rep advised us about what was going on and minded the town's business to make sure that we got the project, a quality project, for the right price. And that project was brought in under budget on that particular project. So at any rate, yeah, we have to evaluate their qualifications. Sure. I just want to address one other quick thing. A question was raised about why we didn't have this earlier. And the reason was that it became a rush at the building committee has solicited many grants. There was grant money obtained that had a deadline for construction to start, or the grant would have been forfeited. So the architect split this very early part of the project off from the rest of it, basically the site work and some of the foundation work. So that was rushed in to keep that grant money alive and valid. And now, before the main part of the project continues, we're looking to get some professionals on the project to watch this for the town and for supervision.
Thank you, Mr. Nugent. Ms. Isaac?
Sorry. Yeah, Mary Isaac, Town Council. Just as Christine was saying, I know when the project had started, the understanding was pretty much that we would put the 200,000 in, and then the project would take on its own life and seek grants. And as Dan Sacco has said, who we know is great at hitting the public and soliciting, that there would be a lot of opportunities for the public and corporate sponsorships. I know that Rena and Mr. Baldwin were going to be seeking corporate sponsorships. They hadn't gotten there yet. But in the number of grants that they had received, we haven't had a presentation in quite some time. I know the STEEP grant has been used, but there were also the federal grants. So where do we stand in the funding, as well as the Rotary fundraiser, naming rights, things like that? Is there not sufficient funding that is available in this committee's budget that they would be able to take this on?
Ms. Isaac, the building committee will be coming to the council with an update on all this, but I think Mr. Nugent explained the timing of things and how they've progressed at this point. We will have to take a closer look at the budget. I don't have it with me. I don't know that anybody has it available to them tonight. There are certain line items in there that address some of the construction management. Don't know that there was a specific line item for a clerk of the works.
Yeah, I just meant if we were voting on this tonight to have some kind of knowledge on what is actually there.
I couldn't tell you all the specifics on the budget offhand like this, but that's how we got to this point. And I'm recommending that the funds be allocated for this purpose. And it's a 50-50 allocation with the financing that the committee does have. We're not paying for 100%, it'd be 50%. If we get a bid, that's lower, then the town's 50% participation would be lower.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Shelby.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just took a look at the building committee rules, and clearly clerk of the works has to be approved by the town council. And the rationale for hiring clerk of the works and the individual or firm to be hired is under the jurisdiction of the town council. So in terms of timing, that needs to be taken into account. I think you're obviously need to be talking about your December meeting for all of that to have happened. I would think it could happen, but it's got to be put on the fast track.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. I've spoken to Chairman Baldwin about it. I told him what he has to do. And you've all heard it again tonight. All right. I think we've covered everything in the proposed allocation section. It's getting late. Is there anything else either members of the Board of Finance or the council would like to go back and address or comment on? Otherwise, I think the next phase is for the Board of Finance to undertake consideration of the allocations and reallocations tonight.
Lainey McHugh, Board of Finance. So at this time, I'll ask the Board of Finance to revisit the motion that's on the floor to vote on the allocation of the remaining unallocated and reallocated American Recovery Plan Act ARPA funds as recommended by the first selectman. Mr. Gala motioned that, and Mr. Zimoff seconded it. So the motion is active for discussion from the Board of Finance. We can do this one of two ways. We can decide if there's more discussion you'd like to have on each of the items in the last page of the request for the unallocated funds, and see if there's something that you would like to suggest changing. Otherwise, we can take the total in whole. I'll jump at once.
I'm fine with the total at whole.
Okay. Anybody else on the Board of Finance have comment or question before we take the total in whole? Pinelli?
I'm also fine with the total in whole.
I would echo that.
All right. Christine?
Same.
So we'll ask Phyllis to do a roll call vote from the Board of Finance for the reallocation with the balance reserve of $23,074.07 to reallocate $452,000. That's not the right total. Can I just have the right total, Maria, from the updated spreadsheet? I have yesterday's spreadsheet in front of me.
You want to reallocate $452,458.56.
458.56. Phyllis, can you take that by roll call vote as recommended by the first selectman?
Scott Zimoff?
Yes.
Dave Gower,
Yes.
Rosemary Seaman,
Yes.
Christine L. Harris,
Yes.
Paul Timpanelli,
Yes.
Laney McHugh,
Yes.
600.
So that moves now to the town council. Maria?
Can I make a suggestion that you also approve the reallocation of the 220,000? Because those are projects that there were savings and then they're reallocating to other projects like the library.
Okay, so as proposed by the first selectman, the reallocation of $220,000 to the library department
And the local meals program.
and the local meals program as discussed during the meeting. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, David Gala. Thank you, Mr. Timpanelli. And from the Board of Finance, Phyllis, can you do that by roll call? Because I can't see everyone.
Scott Seymour,
Yes.
Dave Gala,
Absolutely, yes.
Rosemary Seaman,
Yes.
Christina Elleris,
Yes.
Paul Timpanelli,
Yes.
Laney McHugh,
Yes.
6-0.
At this time, if the Board of Finance has nothing else, although Maria, your hand is still up. Did I miss anything?
Yeah, I would suggest that the remaining funds are 64,000.
You want us to make a motion to allow the first selectman to allocate that as indicated for overages?
Yes.
Okay. May I have a motion to allow the first selectman to allocate the remaining 64,000 as needed for the end of the year, before the end of the year?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you.
Second
Mr.
it.
Pennell. Thank you, Scott. And again, one more time, Phyllis, through the Board of Finance.
Scott Seymour,
Yes.
Dave Gala,
Yes.
Christina Elleris,
Yes.
Rosemary Seaman,
Yes.
Paul Timpanelli,
Yes.
Laney McHugh, Laney McHugh,
Yes.
6-0.
Okay. Maria's hand is down. It looks like we're good with those three motions. And with that, the Board of Finance I'll take a motion to adjourn the Board of Finance meeting. And you can remain on the call to watch as the town council takes care of their vote.
I'll move the adjournment motion.
I'll second it.
Paul. Thank you, Scott. Can I take that by unanimous consent?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yankees are leading
Oh,
4-0 if anyone needs to know.
That's 5-0, Mr.
What was it,
Tipinelli.
5? Excuse me.
Oh, the Yankees.
5-0.
Well, with
And
that,
with all due respect, there's a few Dodger fans still here.
I'm sure there's not.
Okay, there's one.
all right. I want to thank the Board of Finance, all the department heads, our town attorneys, all our members of the council for attending this joint session. I'm going to have the council stand in recess for 5 or 10 minutes so we can powder our noses, and we'll come back. Mr. Chin, you just keep this open. Is that what you do? Okay, so I'd ask everybody sit back for 5 or 10 minutes, can mute out.
Carl, I think you muted yourself there.
I did. I'm sorry. As I was telling everybody to mute, I muted. I'm the only one who listens to myself. The dogs don't listen. Anyway, we'll stand in recess. Thank you.
Thank you.
Huh? Am I alive? Barely. Ouch. Oh, my knee, my back. Oh, my ache.
Someone should mute, just as an FYI.
No, I'm not. Why do I care? We're on a break. What do you care for? Do you think everybody cares about this project? I didn't even know where to begin with this meeting. I thought that I was gonna just sit quietly and then make.
Who am I listening to? I hear people talking.
I think it was Phyllis who wasn't muted.
Oh, okay. Want to make sure I wasn't missing anything.
Looks like I am muted. That's weird.
Who's muted?
I just muted me, Phyllis.
Oh. Oh, how do I mute now? I can't find me.
Bill Chin, if you can hear me, I think we're ready to reconvene council.
Carl, are we active now? Are we reconvening?
Do we have all the council members back?
Do we want a roll call?
Margaret, are you back with us?
Yes. Just trying to see if everybody else is back, but
Yeah, I'm trying to check as well. How many council members are present tonight?
18.
18. Okay. Let's see.
People are still popping back in though, because it's
Okay, we'll give them some time.
Bill, Kelly's trying to get back in. Can you send her another link?
Of course, I can do.
Thank you. Mecca's the same.
While we're waiting, we can just watch Dimitri appear in and out of the flowers.
Hey, Bill, Mike Buswell's out in the,
So, yeah, I am unable to send email invitations for this meeting because the meeting's ended according to Zoom, in terms of the time that we had it set for. So they're gonna have to find the email that I sent at 6:45.
Okay.
Mine was in my calendar, if that helps anybody, since I had RSVP'd to it. That's where I found it back in my calendar. It wasn't in my inbox anymore. If that
They
helps
can also
anybody.
use the link from the town website.
which I believe they can just pop on if they have their agenda saved.
Yeah, from the agenda, they can get on it too.
What are we missing?
I see Kelly is back. I think it might be Bill Mecca still.
Yeah, Bill's not back in yet.
And I
I
think
just
Mike's not
texted.
back in yet.
And Mike is
Mike's on the
Mike's on his way in.
yeah.
Okay.
I see Mike as an attendee. And he has his hand raised.
I have promoted Mike, and Mike and it says
Yeah.
he'll be joining as a panelist.
Okay.
All right, I'm back in. Sorry, I was in a different area.
What did I do?
Carl, Bill will be in a minute. I feel like you can get started.
Yeah, he says he's in.
Yeah, Kevin Shively's name, but Bill Mecca's face.
Haven't we had that problem before?
It's
you know
because
what?
Kevin forwarded. I'll rename.
All right, thank you, because I had deleted it. So, and I can't
Margaret,
find.
maybe take a quick roll call and make sure we all 18 of us are here.
Okay.
Okay. Get back to that. Okay, Mike Buswell,
Here.
Mary Isaac,
Here.
Bill Mecca,
Here.
Ann Sather,
Here.
Veronica Lenzen,
Here.
Richard Wolf,
Here.
Jason Marsh,
Here.
Anthony Dorsey,
Here.
Ashley Gaudiano,
Here.
Carl Massaro,
Here.
John Foreman,
Here.
Joe Pifko,
Here.
Scott Wick,
Here.
Steve Lemoyne,
Here.
Kelly Malazzi,
Here.
Tony Cinto,
Here.
Kevin Shively,
Here.
and Nicole Satin.
Here.
Okay,
Right.
we didn't lose anybody.
Thank you very much. Okay, so we have our resolution on the floor. We have the schedule of proposed new allocations and reallocations. Entertain discussion or motions. Mr. Dorsey?
Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I just want to make sure I hit the right button. Thank you, Chairman. I would like to make a motion to reallocate from the library fund $115,000 to two different projects. The first being $75,000 to the Veteran and First Responders Center of $75,000. And the second is $40,000 to Public Works replace vehicles and equipment schedule, bringing that total up to $102,000.
Second.
Thank you. Discussion on that motion. Ms. Lenzen,
Sorry, that hand is for later.
for the second. Okay. Any discussion on the motion? Ms. Gaudiano?
Thank you, Chairman. I would just like to understand, I guess, one, whether there's specific projects you had in mind when you're pulling the money from the library. I think the library did everything right in coming in under budget with their initial allocation. And, libraries are community hubs. And so being able to fund and maintain our library to a really nice high standard, given what we have, is just really important. It's at the heart of our community. And so, I'm not necessarily a huge fan of the idea of reallocating from there. So would love to hear a little bit more if the caucus is willing to share why or what projects you envision taking from the library and
Well,
reallocating.
I'm not, whatever's left for the for the library in the budget would be for them to reallocate to what they feel necessary with the budget they have. My case for, or my thought process for the reallocation is really thinking about the town and thinking about where the monies can be best served, both from a service and a safety perspective. The Veteran Committee, the Veterans Center and the First Responder Center obviously is something that has been very important to this town. There's been a lot of effort placed into it. So fully funding whatever that title is, to be sure that the project is done fully and correctly, to me is important for the reallocation. And the second is the Public Works Department's making sure their fleet is operating at full capacity as best as possible, to me is a proper reason for the allocation.
Thank you, Ms. Malazzi.
I echo Councilman Gaudiano's comments and am extremely opposed to taking any money away from the library. It is an institution that a newborn baby all the way to a 110-year-old person can use. I'm very against taking money away from that. And it was mentioned by Board of Finance alternate Christine L. Harris that we were on multiple occasions given assurances that town money was not going to be necessary to fund the Veterans and First Responder Center. And I would be absolutely in favor of what they asked for, which is $75,000. But I really don't want to see money taken away from the library to get put into that bucket. So I hope you'll all take that into consideration when you vote.
Did we lose Carl?
Frozen? I think he might be frozen. Carl just texted me. He has a power failure.
Oh, geez.
I don't know. I don't know what to do.
Who's the vice chair?
Mike Buswell.
Mr. Buswell, why don't you assume vice chair duties while Mr. Massaro is unable to preside?
Certainly. Are there any hands up for any additional questions?
Councilman Marsh had his hands up.
Councilman Marsh, you have the
Thank
floor.
you. Thank you. I would just echo the comments made by Ms. Malazzi. I don't support, while I support the Veterans Center, certainly I don't support reallocating the money in this manner. The library, from a impact standpoint, the dollars will impact a greater number of people who utilize the library versus the center. And I am cognizant of Ms. L. Harris's comments about the source of funds for the Veterans Center and how, again, we were assured that this was going to be a fully funded project, and it wasn't going to be coming looking for the town for money. And I'm aware that this is ARPA money, but I think it would be better served at the library. So I would oppose the amendment.
Thank you. Councilman Mecca?
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Yeah, I'm a big supporter of the library. That's also one of many aging municipal buildings in this town that has not really received much funding for upgrades. And what they are asking is really to increase the access and the utilization. And as has been stated in different ways, that is a service that gets a lot of use from a lot of demographics. This funny technological noise that's going on there. It sounds like someone's stomach, but especially with what they're looking to do in terms of making that space for meetings, for study rooms. Those are things that we've been lacking for many, many years. So I wouldn't want to see that being undermined by taking the money away. Thank you.
I'm back, folks. Sorry, I had a power failure. I lost my laptop contact. Does anybody else have their hand raised? I can't see.
None that I see.
None that I see. All right, well, we have the motion on the floor. I guess we're ready to take a vote. Margaret, roll call, please, on the motion to reallocate.
Mike Buswell,
Yes.
Mary Isaac,
No.
Bill Mecca,
No.
Ann Sather,
Yes.
Veronica Lenzen,
Yes.
Richard Wolf,
Yes.
Jason Marsh,
No.
Anthony Dorsey,
Yes.
Ashley Gaudiana,
No.
Carl Massaro,
Yes.
John Foreman, did we lose John Foreman?
Yes.
Thank you. Joe Pifko,
Yes.
Scott Wick,
No.
Steve Lemoyne,
Yes.
Kelly Malazzi,
No.
Tony Sinto,
Yes.
Kevin Shively,
No.
Nicole Satin.
No.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Is there any other motion or discussion?
Veronica has her hand up, Carl.
I'm sorry, I can't see that, but thank you. Go ahead, Ms. Lenzen.
That's okay. Yeah, I'd like to make a motion that we reallocate from the reserve $64,273.72 to the lightning detection system for a total of $124,273.72.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I second Tony Dorsey.
Discussion on the motion?
Ashley has her hand up.
I'm sorry, go ahead. I can't see that. I
That's
apologize.
okay. Are you on a
Everybody
phone,
else.
Carl? Makes it hard.
I am.
With that motion and reallocating the remaining reserve, is there an intention for any additional motions that would give us reserve funding?
Not from me, no.
So the proposal is that we completely deplete any reserves. Is that correct? I just want to make sure we're on the same page.
Unless I did bad math, yes, that's.
Okay, and then I know First Selectman has her hand up, but I would love is Maria still on? I don't know if Maria's still on. There she is. I know that the recommendation out of our finance department was to have some amount of reserves. And so if Maria could comment with her thoughts and opinion on this, that would be helpful.
Once we go out to bid, we don't know how much, especially those projects, how much they're going to cost. So I just felt that if we leave some for those projects, just in case they go over, then, we'll be okay. Otherwise, either we're going to have to not do the project or come to the board for additional funding from the operating budget.
Right, and so if we don't do, right, if something comes back, if a lightning detection system comes back at 126 and not 124, then we
Either
are either
another-
coming back for a supplemental request
Or one
or
of the other projects
we're
could
not
be
doing
lower.
it.
Or another project could be lower. We don't know what the cost will be. Once we go to bid, we'll find out.
No, I understand that, Maria, but if it comes back and it's over and there's no other dollars available, then we make the decision not to do it, and therefore we're in a conundrum about having to reallocate a small portion of ARPA dollars again, but having no time to do so. Is that the other way that that scenario plays out?
Yes, or limit the project to
Okay.
that 60,000 that it was originally brought to the floor here.
What number makes you feel comfortable in the reserve besides the 64,000? Or is that what you?
I don't know. Sorry. I don't know what the cost will be on all these projects.
I just didn't know if there was a method to the madness of getting to 64,000, or if that was these projects plus the unallocated. And we were
Just by, yeah, it was just based on the work on, what the projects were and what was left over. No, there was no reasoning behind leaving 64 or another number.
Okay, so I guess I would just say before Vicky talks, it seems like we should have something in there. It could be smaller. And maybe there's a way to compromise on how much of that reserve gets allocated if the wish is to the lightning detection system, but in a way that we leave some amount in there as a buffer so that we don't end up back here again.
Agree.
Mr. Soro, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just will echo that sentiment. I am concerned without leaving any buffer whatsoever that we could be jeopardizing other projects and not be able to do them and then end up having to return that money. And that certainly shouldn't be anybody's goal here. So I think you should look at creating something of a buffer. I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be the 64,000. That number was what we came up with the projects that we put back into the bucket here. But to deplete the entire amount, I think could be costly to the town in one way or another. Either not being able to do the project or having to come back and ask for a supplemental from our general fund in order to finish a project.
I'm really lousing up my my phone here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right. I'll have to go without my video. I would just respond by saying we're 60 days from the end of the allocation period. Whether we leave any money in reserve or have to come back to tweak things, we're just really out of time. We will have to come back and address a reserve of any kind before December 31st. And I just think it's really past time that we should be fully allocated. If there is some shortfall on the bids that go out over the next 30 days, we can come back on a simple motion to reallocate from other funds or to do a supplemental. I'm more concerned about getting all of the ARPA money allocated at last and completing, the various projects.
Councilman Massaro, I have my hand raised again, and I'm just saying that because I don't know if you can see me.
I can't, but
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Ashley Gadiano, Town Council. I will just add this. It feels like we are ignoring the advice given by department heads who we entrust and seek out this sort of advice on. And so, I would just say if there's a $10,000 or $15,000 buffer to make some of this smoother, that would be really logical to me, right? We just had Attorney Nugent say that they were asking for $75,000 for the Veterans and First Responders Center, and that's what we needed. And then we dismissed that request to allocate additional funds. And now we're doing that with Maria asking for, and the first selectman asking for some amount of reserve money. So I don't know what the answer is in terms of dollar amount, but having a little bit of money there so that we don't come back and have supplemental requests, and then everybody's mad that we have supplemental requests and we're spending money on things, feels like a smart thing to do. And so I would say, you know, $10,000 or $15,000 there of a little bit of buffer feels like it honors what Maria is asking for as our finance department head.
Thank you. So anybody else have their hand up?
Councilman Shively has his hand up.
Yes, I do.
Thank you, Mr. Shively. Go ahead.
I'd like to reiterate that from that Ashley just said, Ms. Gaudiano. I'm concerned that we don't have anything left over to be able to, I mean, because if we have to do supplemental, that actually comes out of our pockets, right? So, you know, I don't want to get to the point where we have to cut back or scale back projects and things that we want to actually do right, because we don't have that little extra cushion to be able to actually get the job done right. Like Ms. Gaudiano said, I mean, our department heads have said that we feel that we need this. The first selectman has said that she has very deep concerns that we're not going to have that cushion to be able to get these things done the way that we want to get them done. And I certainly don't want to, I mean, we've gotten this money from the federal government. We don't want to actually dip into our own pockets to get these things done. That's the whole point of this. And the whole point of this is to be able to do it in a way that doesn't cost our taxpayers more money. And the only way to do that and to guarantee that we can do that is to actually have some reasonable cushion to be able to deal with the inevitable overflows that tend to happen with these types of projects. So I would just very strongly hope that the rest of my colleagues would find some way to carve out some little cushion to be able to make sure that we can do these things right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shively. Even if there's a cushion, we have to come back and allocate it with no time to bid on however we might expend that. So I mean, that's my thinking is we should be fully allocated. It's should have done this much earlier. Could have had a cushion. We know what we're doing.
With all due respect, Mr. Chairman, I think that we should have done this much earlier. We tried to get this meeting done, you know, a month ago, but unfortunately we weren't able to do it until now. But the fact is that if we don't have this cushion, I would rather sacrifice a few $1,000s than have a project go into our pockets or not get done correctly. I would rather have that happen, frankly. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shively.
Carl, I have a question, it's Tony.
Mr. Cinto?
Yeah, sorry. If the money has to be allocated by the end of the year, none of these projects are going to be started by the end of the year, correct?
Well,
Yes or no?
No, I think I tried to clarify to everybody up front that these needed to be allocated and contracted for.
So you just can't leave 64,000 in January 1st. You just can't leave it someplace in the bank, so to speak. It has to be allocated to something, correct?
It does. Whether we have 10,000 on reserve, 60,000 on reserve, no money on reserve, it's all got to be allocated and contracted for in the next 60 days. So it means, you know, a lot of the projects, a lot of the money that's allocated or being reallocated tonight, there's some fast footwork to be had here so that we comply with the federal requirements. So I personally don't see that there's any time to wait and see. Again, I apologize. Does anybody have their hand up?
No one has that. Jason Marsh has just raised his hand.
Yeah.
Okay, Mr.
I guess I want to take the temperature of the entire council to see whether there's any interest in compromising here. Instead of reallocating the entire 64, I would propose reallocating 44 and leaving 20 in reserve. I don't know if we need to, if Mr. Dorsey is willing to amend his original motion, or we have to vote and then
It
I'll
was
make
my
an amendment,
motion,
but
Councilman Marsh, it was my motion, just for the record.
I'm sorry, Ms. Lenzen, I
That's okay.
apologize.
We both made motions. I just, for the record, I wanted it
Yeah.
clear.
I just, you know, if is there an appetite to compromise? And can we amend the original motion?
Well, you gotta come back in 60 days. So
Your motion, Ms. Lenzen, you can answer the question.
Before I answer that, I see that Ms. Satin has her hand up. I just would like to give her a chance to speak.
And
Go
so
ahead,
does
Ms. Satin.
Attorney Stopik.
I'm sorry, Attorney Shopik?
Nikki, you're muted.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The process would be, if you don't have to vote this one down and have a new motion, somebody can make a secondary motion to change that $64,000 to 44,000 or whatever, to allocate to Lightning or wherever else you want to do it. So, and then if that fails, you come back to the original motion.
Then I suppose I made a motion to a secondary motion to amend.
Meant to 20,000 in reserve, Jason, to be clear.
Correct.
I'll second that, Ashley Gadiano.
All right, thank you. Discussion on the secondary motion. I think we've heard, we just need money.
I just have a question for Attorney Shopik, real quick, if that's okay about this.
Please.
Dan, just for clarity, I believe what the Board of Finance did was give the first selectman the authority to spend down the reserve on projects that had already been approved. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so that is an option on the table, is if we leave a small amount to give her the authority to allocate that 10, 20, whatever $1,000 to any already authorized projects, not new projects, but already authorized projects, and therefore
I'm not
eliminate the need to come back. Is that correct?
I'm not certain of the wording. I don't know, Margaret, did you take that down in notes because, or somebody, because I thought it was more open-ended in terms of being able to reallocate. But I could be wrong.
But they allowed for her to reallocate. And
Yes,
if we so chose to go down that road, we could make it more narrow if they didn't already do that.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'm done now, Carl. Thank you.
Thank you. So there's the secondary motion. Any other comments or discussion on it?
what's the actual motion?
Motion is to reduce the reallocation and leave 20,000 in reserve.
But then wouldn't we have to come back in December to allocate the next 20,000?
We would, yes, we would, unless we delegated the authority as the Board of Finance did.
Wasn't part of the motion taking 44 and assigning it to a project?
The lightning detection system. Leaving 20 in reserve.
Thank you.
I think the original motion was to take the reserve amount of 64,273.72 and allocate it to the lightning detection system. The secondary motion was to reduce that reallocation by 20,000 to 44,273.72. Does that sound correct to everyone?
Yes.
Yep.
Mr. Marsh, is that right? Your
Yes.
second motion. Okay, so
Carl, we have
Any
two
other-
hands raised, Kevin Shively and Councilman Satin.
okay, Mr. Shively, go ahead.
So I would just ask, could Councilman Marsh actually modify his motion to also include that $20,000 is at the discretion of the first selectman to allocate as needed so that we don't have to come back in 60 days, as Mr. Cento was saying?
I think those should be separate motions, Kevin. I think we should do a motion around reserves and then a separate motion, so we don't muddy the waters.
Okay, assuming that motion passes and that money is still there.
Councilwoman Satin still has her hand up. I feel really bad. I don't think we've let
Oh,
her
no,
talk.
don't. Every time it comes down, I forget to put myself off mute. So we'd still need to ultimately find them another $20,000 in the regular budget process, it seems to me, correct?
I think that,
For the
I
lightning
think,
detection.
yeah, I think that's an excellent point, that they need $64,000 more. Some from somewhere, the grants.
Well, when you say they need 64,000, that's assuming we agree that the project needs to all be done at once and not phased in. So I think that's probably where there's some disagreement.
Well, perhaps, but you know,
There's
I
still
think if
gonna
they're
be
going to put a system in, they ought to put the whole thing in.
Right.
That's me. Go ahead,
I
Ms.
see.
Hatton.
I actually see Ms. Tesoro there, so I'll let her speak and see if I have another question. Oops.
Okay, Mr. Sorrow, go ahead.
So I'm just looking to see whether Mrs. Murphy or Mr. Kingsbury are still on the call or they left to get their opinion.
It looks like Mr. Kingsbury is here.
And he
Sorry.
raised
Is his hand?
We're here. Hold on.
Mm.
Sorry, we're having computer issues. We are both here. Megan Murphy, Emergency Management Director, and Andy. First of all, thank you for trying to increase the funding for us. If we do not get the full funding, then we will have to scale the project back and reduce coverage in certain areas.
So let me ask you, Ms. Murphy, how confident are you in a full system cost of 124,000?
We are ready to go to contract. Those numbers just came in and they are good for 60 days.
So that's a hard number. Right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I can't see anybody have their hand raised. I apologize.
No.
No, no one else.
Nobody has raised their hand. Carl, did you freeze again?
You hear me?
Now we can. Yep.
Okay. All right. So there's no further discussion. So the secondary motion is to reduce the reallocation to 44,273.72 cents from the reserve line item to the lightning detection system, leaving $20,000 in reserve. Margaret, would you call the roll on that secondary motion vote?
Mike Buswell,
No.
Mary Isaac,
Yes.
Michael Callahan. Oh, I'm sorry, he's not here. Bill Mecca,
Yes.
Ann Sather,
No.
Veronica Lenzen,
No.
Richard Wolf,
No.
Jason Marsh,
Yes.
Anthony Dorsey,
No.
Ashley Gaudiano,
Yes.
Carl Massaro,
No.
John Foreman,
No.
Joe Pifko,
No.
Scott Wick,
Yes.
Steve Lemoyne,
No.
Kelly Malazzi,
Yes.
Tony Cinto,
No.
Kevin Shively,
Yes.
Nicole Satin,
Yes.
Motion failed.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We have the main motion then, which is to reallocate the entire reserve of 64,273.72 to the lightning detection system. Any further discussion or comments?
Nobody has their hand raised.
Thank you. Hearing none. Margaret, would you please call the roll?
Mike Buswell,
Yes.
Mary Isaac,
No.
Bill Mecca,
No.
Ann Sather,
Yes.
Veronica Lenzen,
Yes.
Richard Wolf,
Yes.
Jason Marsh,
No.
Anthony Dorsey,
Yes.
Ashley Gaudiano,
No.
Carl Massaro,
Yes.
John Foreman,
Yes.
Joe Pifko,
Yes.
Scott Wick,
No.
Steve Lemoyne,
Yes.
Kelly Malazzi,
No.
Tony Sinto,
Yes.
Kevin Shively,
No.
Nicole Satin,
No.
motion passes.
Madam Clerk, Michael Colahan is in attendance. Do you see him or no?
I have promoted him, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, I thought he was in attendance. I thought we were all here.
He,
He thinks he was too, I guess.
we have not called his name for any of the votes.
Okay,
You called his name but skipped over him.
No, from the very beginning, we had 3 absent. He was 1. I accidentally said his name thinking that was just an accident, but from the beginning, I had 3 down as absent and he was one of them.
I
Was
believe
he-
he was one of the people waiting to be let in, and he was let
Yeah,
in after
sorry.
he did it. That's why.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I texted Carl. I couldn't get in. I listened, I couldn't get in.
okay, so that motion has been voted and passed. Are there any other motions?
I just have a question as was he then not voting this evening? Because now I don't have a record of his votes.
I think if you didn't call him, and he therefore didn't vote, we'll have to just note the minutes. I suppose we could go back and record his votes. But I don't think there's a point in doing that if he wasn't called at the time.
Okay.
A question for Maria. I think that the Board of Finance, you asked the Board of Finance to approve 2 specific reallocations. Do we need to do that?
I would suggest you do that now that you made the changes. I kept track of the changes you made.
I don't recall which items that you asked them to approve the reallocations. I don't think it was part of the grouping of the new allocations.
Right. I asked for the reallocation of the 220,298.36, which they approved. The town council removed 75 and 40,000, which means that total is 105,298.36. And
Maria, can
then-
you repeat that? The 220, 298, 36 is now 105.
105, 298, 36.
Thank you.
And then there were changes to the 64 was taken away from the reserve to the emergency management lightning detection system, bringing that amount to 124,273.72. There was that change to the 40,000 to the public works, which brings that the replacement of the vehicles to 102,000. And the other veterans and first responders, there was an additional 75,000 for a total of 150, bringing the new projects of 631,732.28, not including the reallocation of that 105. So I suggest you vote on the 105, 298.36, and the 631, 732.28. I could probably bring it up if you need me to.
Carl, Ashley also has her hand raised, just to let you know.
I'm sorry, Ms. Gaudiano?
I'm fine to wait until we take these two votes. I have one additional motion to make, but we'll wait until we vote on these allocations.
Well, if we vote on these allocations, then we're basically done. Did you want to?
I can do it now
something
then.
else?
That's fine. I'd like to make a motion to authorize the first selectman to make any additional reallocations necessary based off of projects we've approved that come in under budget, and therefore we have excess ARPA dollars. So I don't know how we want to word that motion, but I'd like to give the first selectman the authorization to reallocate to existing approved projects any additional funds that come after the bidding processes. Dan, you can help me with that if that makes sense.
I think you said it.
Second.
Was that Nicole?
It was
Malazi?
Kelly.
I think that was Kelly
Sorry,
Malazzi.
Kelly Malazzi.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, we have a motion on the floor to allow the delegate the first selectman to reallocate any under spending that occurs on the approved final allocations. That fair statement?
Specifically to approved projects, right? So not to be able to go
right.
make up new projects, but specifically to authorized projects.
Okay, everybody understand the motion? I think so. Okay,
So,
Margaret.
no, let me see if I'm unclear. The motion is
Dorsey,
to allow Vicky to allocate funds for that came on under the bidding process that have already been approved, essentially.
I think that hits the nail on the head.
Thank you.
Thank you. Two projects already allocated.
Yes, to projects already allocated. Yes.
Okay. All right, anything else? Any comments further? All right, let's vote on that, Margaret. Please, roll call.
Mike Buswell,
Some quick
Sorry,
text flying.
sorry, it was frozen. Hey, I said yes.
I think I heard a yes.
Can you hear me?
now we can.
Yes.
Sorry, I only see Ashley. I can't see everybody. Okay. Yep, I'm in. It was frozen. Sorry. Yes.
Yes, is your vote?
Yes.
Mary Isaac,
Yes.
Michael Callahan,
Yes.
Bill Mecca,
Yes.
Ann Sather,
Yes.
Jennifer, nope, Jennifer's not here. Veronica,
Yes.
Richard Wolf,
Yes.
Jason Marsh,
Yes.
Anthony Dorsey,
Yes.
Ashley Gaudiano,
Yes.
Carl Massaro,
Carl froze.
I think we'll come back to Carl. John Foreman,
I did say yes.
you did?
I did.
Thank you. John Foreman,
Yes.
Joe Pifko,
Yes.
Scott Wick,
Yes.
Steve Lemoyne,
Yes.
Kelly Malazzi,
Yes.
Tony Sinto,
No.
Kevin Shively,
Yes.
Nicole Satin.
Yes.
Carries.
Thank you. Okay, so we need a motion to approve the amount of $105,298.36.
So moved.
Second.
Second. Oop. Jinx.
Need to state who made the motion, who made the second.
Veronica Lenzen made the motion.
Ann Sather made the second.
Wow.
Thank you.
All right, Margaret, the roll, please.
Mike Buswell,
Yes.
Mary Isaac,
Yes.
Michael Callahan,
Yes.
Bill Mecca,
Yes.
Ann Sather,
Yes.
Veronica Lenzen,
Yes.
Richard Wolf,
Yes.
Jason Marsh,
Yes.
Anthony Dorsey,
Yes.
Ashley Gaudiano,
Yes.
Carl Massaro,
Yes.
John Foreman,
Yes.
Joe Pifko,
Yes.
Scott Wick,
No.
Steve Lemoyne,
No.
Kelly Malazzi,
Yes.
Tony Sinto,
No.
Kevin Shively,
Yes.
Nicole Satin.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I guess we need a motion to approve the final allocation and reallocations in the amount of $631,732.28.
I'll make that motion. Veronica Lenzen.
Thank you. Second, anyone?
Tony Dorsey, second.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, call the roll for that vote, please.
Mike Buswell,
Yes.
Mary Isaac,
Yes.
Michael Callahan,
Yes.
Bill Mecca,
Yes.
Ann Sather,
Yes.
Veronica Lenzen,
Yes.
Richard Wolf,
Yes.
Jason Marsh,
No.
Anthony Dorsey,
Yes.
Ashley Gaudiano,
No.
Carl Massaro,
Yes.
John Foreman,
Yes.
Joe Pifko,
Yes.
Scott Wick,
No.
Steve Lemoyne,
Yes.
Kelly Malazzi,
No.
Tony Sinto,
Yes.
Kevin Shively,
No.
Nicole Satin.
No.
Motion carries.
Thank you. I think we need to take one final vote on the resolution as amended. So, Madam Clerk, call that roll, please.
Carl, what's it?
Carl, what are we
can-
voting for?
Yeah.
Well, we've amended the resolution. The main resolution was, to vote on the allocation and reallocation. So we didn't actually vote on that resolution. We just voted on a series of changes.
So the resolution is not amended. It was,
The allocations were. So
yeah.
I guess we need to make a motion to approve the resolution with the allocations as amended.
I make that motion.
Thank you.
Tony Dorsey. Veronica Lenzen will second.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, call the roll, please.
Mike Buswell,
Yes.
Mary Isaac,
Yes.
Michael Callahan, Yes. Veronica Lenzen,
Yes.
Richard Wolf,
Yes.
Jason Marsh,
No.
Anthony Dorsey,
Yes.
Ashley Gaudiana,
No.
Carl Massaro,
Yes.
John Foreman,
Yes.
Joe Pifko,
Yes.
Scott Wick,
No.
Steve Lemoyne,
Yes.
Kelly Malazzi,
No.
Tony Sinto,
Yes.
Kevin Shively,
No.
Nicole Satin.
No.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I think that concludes our business. There, anything else? If not, entertain the motion to adjourn.
So moved. Veronica
Second.
Lenzen.
Tony Dorsey's, oh, second.
Second. Okay. I guess we have to do the roll call vote because we're on Zoom, so
No, it
Go
could
ahead.
be unanimous consent.
do we have adjournment by unanimous consent? Any objection?
Yes.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
No, thank you.
Thanks,
Good night,
everybody.
thank you.
Have a good evening.